Aaron Eckhart playing Frankenstein's monster. Who saw that one coming? Really, if you think about it though, it does fit this guy playing an undead character who walks the moral line. But it raises one question. Did he die a hero or live long enough to see himself become the villain? I know what you're gonna say. I, Frankenstein? Really? Well, as soon as I saw the trailer, you know what I thought to myself? That is the worst movie I can't wait to see. Well, that might not be as harsh and unfair as it sounds. This comes from the mind of Kevin Grevioux, the original big man of science fiction. Grevioux was one of the writers, producers, and stars of Underworld, and it was his vision that brought both the comic book and the film of I, Frankenstein to life. Which is why my comment makes sense either way. Because on one side, the last Underworld, not so good. But on the other side, when I first saw the trailer for the first Underworld, I pretty much thought the worst and I ended up loving that flick. The comparison of the two films isn't exactly unfair either, as the setup and the storyline are very similar. In Underworld, it was the vampires versus the Lycans in a centuries-old war with Michael caught in the middle and the two factions fighting over him. In I, Frankenstein, it's the gargoyles versus the demons in a centuries-old war with Adam, Frankenstein's monster, caught in the middle and the two factions fighting over him. I mean, the concept is so simple, I'm pretty sure even Frankenstein's monster can pitch it. Demons, bad. Gargoyles, good. Adam, kind of a morally gray area. This, however, is a very different version of Frankenstein's monster than we have seen or heard before. While the comic book version of I, Frankenstein clearly borrows the look of Adam from the classic Boris Karloff films, this is not the James Whale version of the monster. It's not the Kenneth Branagh version of the monster. Hell, it's not even Herman Munster, because this monster actually has layers. Although you wouldn't know it to look at him with his pretty boy product-infused hair, heroic chin, and chiseled abs. I think I know where Victor Frankenstein found the parts to create Adam. Didn't I read something about a gasoline explosion? I mean, this handsome hobo is even wearing derelict. Part of the reason Underworld worked was because Grevioux and the rest of the writing team are actually very well-educated men, and so brought in a level of believability when it came to the science and the rules of that cinematic world. With I, Frankenstein, it did seem like a natural enough progression from Shelley's original work, and some of the themes related well, but some of the rules in the universe didn't. For instance, I know Adam is a super strong immortal, but when he jumps off a building or gets hit by a train, wouldn't he just break apart? Because as strong as he is, he's still basically a sack of meat. Grevioux has gone on record as saying that he is both a Christian and a scientist, even pursuing his graduate degree in genetic engineering. The dichotomy of both science and religion makes not only for some interesting conflict on screen, but taken further with the writer himself. One of my favorite parts is that the demons actually say that Adam is a tool of evil, because he's proof that not just God can create life. That was pretty clever. There is also an underlying theme of questioning your creator. Adam hunts Frankenstein and is very jaded towards God. But all these clever moments are really just buried in an otherwise very simplistic film. Don't get me wrong, I knew what I was getting into, demons, monsters, but basically it reminded me of a slightly longer episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, without the wit, charm, or intelligent writing. Which is too bad, because on paper, it actually has a decent cast full of regulars from fantasy and sci-fi, including Eckhart, Miranda Otto from Lord of the Rings, and Jay Courtney from the most recent Die Hard. However, the greatest character actor has to be a man who's already acted with Grevioux in 2 Underworld films and is good in anything Edgar Wright does. Bill Nighy. The science guy? Here's a guy who pretty much plays the same character every time he's on screen, and yet, if you actually watch him, he makes such specific choices. He can command such slimy humor and pompous intelligence that he's actually a lot of fun to watch. His Prince Nibirius is once again the most entertaining character on screen, and aside from Adam, really the only interesting character in the story. And so, Bill Nighy is I, Frankenstein's for the win. But really, like most of this film, the good is just lost in a sea of mediocrity. It is pretty much what I expected. The action is pretty good, it's monsters versus monsters, and the CG, though subpar, does create a fantastical visual world. But while Underworld slightly reinvented classic movie monsters and had at least some layers that worked, I, Frankenstein just falls flat. There's not enough originality to make it noteworthy, and even though Eckhart and Nighy try their absolute best, they can't bring this monster back to life. It's a burn it. On a personal note, you're going to notice that this review is a little Graveau heavy. The reason for that is that I was supposed to have an interview with this guy. Well, here we are, 72 hours later, and he still hasn't responded to my questions, even though he approved of the interview. I do want to thank Kevin Graveau for his time, regardless, and if I do end up actually getting a response from him, then I will publish the interview and post it in the sidebar. Poll question, what is your favorite classic movie monster? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. But until next time, school's out.